Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. My name is Thomas, and this is AnimeLordReviews. It's been a long time since our last did a review, so let's not waste any time and let's get right into it. Today, I'm reviewing the anime Darker Than Black. So, let's begin. Darker Than Black is an interesting little anime. It takes place in a slightly alternate world from our own, where the creation of these so-called gates led to the creation of people with special abilities and powers. Now, these people are known as contractors, and they each have their own little ability, and they each have their own contract to fulfill. Every time they use their abilities, they are forced to give a payment. Now, this payment can basically be anything from something simple like having to smoke something, having to drink a beer, or from something more intense like having to break your own fingers every single time you use your powers. So yeah, that sounds painful. Now, all things considered though, the anime has an interesting setup and an interesting start to the story. Unfortunately enough though, the actual payoff is less than desirable. Nearing the end of the show, too many things are left unexplained, and it seemed like the creators just didn't care at all. And this is even more evident with the main cast of characters. Each of the main cast of characters are completely uninteresting and boring to an incredible degree. When their backstories is finally explained, most of it still isn't that great, and most of it I just didn't really care about at all. The main cast of characters is so boring, and to me, that is a huge flaw for one simple reason. Like I've always said, story and characters, in my personal opinion, are the most important thing of any given anime or any given TV show or whatever. Mainly because of one simple reason. I'm a story guy. I like stories. And if you don't have an interesting story, then you end up losing me. On top of that, I've always said that characters are probably the most important thing to the story because through your characters, you try to tell your story. If your characters are uninteresting, your story is often less interesting because of it too. Highly unfortunate and highly disappointing. That being said though, it's not all bad, because where the main cast of characters left me with much to be desired and the main story is, well, largely completely unexplained, the side characters to the show and their individual stories and actual arc episodes, because each side character had about 2 episodes devoted to them, in which they have like their little arc episodes where they just explore these characters, and that makes them, they are so much more interesting than the main cast of characters are, which is amazing when you think about it, because they only show up for about 2 episodes when they take center stage, and but when they do, they're already more interesting than the side or than the main characters are, which is interesting when you think about it. So yeah, the main cast and the main story is just boring, but the side characters and their individual arc episodes are pretty darn interesting, which is probably one of my favorite ones is the episode where the detective comes in play. Highly entertaining episode in my opinion. Now, this left me with much to think about, because on one hand, the main story, you would argue, is the most important thing. And to a certain extent, it definitely is. But the side characters and their side stories are still very interesting too, and are, generally speaking, a lot of fun to watch. It's where most of my enjoyment in the show actually came from. And when it really comes down to it, we watch anime for the enjoyment, do we not? At least I do. I don't know about you, but I do. So, with that in mind, I would have to argue that it's not all bad, but certainly not great. Now, as for animation, the animation of this anime is okay. It's not bad at all, but there wasn't one particular point within the entire anime that I felt, wow, this really jumps out to me as excellent, beautiful animation. There was not any particular point throughout the entire anime that I felt that way, which again is highly unfortunate, but that's not bad because the animation was still doing its job well. The fight scenes were pretty well done, and overall speaking, I would have to say that the animation was above average, just not excellent. Now, openings and endings, to my personal opinion, are a bit of a mixed bag. The two openings that we have are, generally speaking, pretty good, especially the first opening. I like the first opening a lot. The second opening was also really enjoyable, but in my personal opinion, a bit more to the cliche of anime openings, whereas the first opening really seemed to have a unique feel to it, and the second opening felt to be largely repetitive and more or less a cliche opening that we always see in animes. The endings, on the other hand, are where I would have to say I was again largely disappointed. The endings, for the most part, are very quiet and incredibly boring. The first ending, for instance, is basically just the camera slowly moving upwards to reveal a main cast character that's sitting in a field of flowers at night, where where a very quiet song is playing. Now, this is not necessarily bad or anything, because this can be um, interesting to a certain extent and very peaceful. I just personally didn't like it much because I didn't think that the song was all that good. On top of that, there was absolutely nothing to make me actually interested throughout the entire opening or ending. Instead, it was all relatively boring again. And the same for the second ending is pretty much the same, where the camera doesn't even move at all, and we have a top view of the camera, and all we see are characters just slowly moving about, with again a very quiet and boring song. It's not necessarily bad, but I didn't like it very much. The songs I felt were, well, just not interesting enough to keep my attention to the to the ending, and on top of that, there was pretty much no movement that I would say was interesting. When all is said and done, this anime kind of falls in the line of The Future Diary, where I did find it entertaining to watch at times. Other times I was left with too much disappointment and overall a story that ended up pretty much nothing, where too many things are completely left unexplained, and the main cast of characters just left me uninterested, where even The Future Diary had a more interesting main cast of characters. This particular anime did not have it. I would have to say that disappointment is probably the best way to describe this particular anime. The setup was excellent and got me invested in the show, but as it went on, too many things just left me completely unexplained, and in the end, uninterested in what would actually happen at the ending of the show. So with that in mind, I would highly suggest that you preview this show to see if you would like it. And if you like it, stream it. Don't buy it, because in my personal opinion, it's not worth a buy. It's a slightly above average show, and thus I will give it a 6 out of 10. It was entertaining, but not enough, and at many points it was highly disappointing in its story, and in my personal opinion, that's just not good. So, with that, I think I'm done here for today. I thank you all so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave me a like in the comments and a comment down below. And if you're new to my channel, you can always subscribe. I would highly appreciate that, and you'll be able to keep up to date on new uploads and all the things that I do. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope to see you again next time. Bye.